Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, CdLS Conference Fundraising Tips. My name is Deirdre Suma, and I'll be your host. I work on the Family Service team here at the CdLS Foundation, and I'm excited to be hosting this today. Also with me is my colleague, Christy Larson. She is going to be assisting in the question and answer portion of today's webinar. I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Tasha Howland, a life coach and mom to Peyton. Tasha has been a resource to families in the past and has helped them successfully gain funding to support their conference attendance. She's going to be offering some tips and strategies that you may find helpful. And she will also offer some fun ideas to help you get started on your way to reaching your fundraising goals. Before I hand the mic over to Tasha, I just had a few housekeeping items that I wanted to go over in regards to today's presentation. First, I wanted to let you know that the webinar will be made available on demand after today's session, and it will also be on the Foundation website that you can access. Next, during the presentation today, we would love to hear from you. If you have a question for Tasha, please feel free to send it through the question tab that is located on the right-hand side of your screen. So at this time, if you would like, using the question tab, if you could let us know where you're calling in from and who that special person in your life who has CdLS, we would love to hear from you. While you're doing that, I also wanted to let you know that we'll be taking questions at the end of the session, but you certainly can post those questions throughout as they come to you. If by chance we don't get to some of the questions, Tasha's contact information is also included on the PowerPoint today, and you can also contact the foundation and we would be happy to address those questions. So at this time, I would like to kick this off by introducing Tasha. And thank you so much, Tasha, for joining us today and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you, Deidre. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, absolutely. Looks great.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I have a passion for CdLS, and you'll see why as I get into my bio. And so today's webinar, like Deidre said, is about fundraising for conference. I've had some experience in personally fundraising, and so I'm just here to share some of my ideas and tips and tricks for families. So let's get started. I want you to get to know me a little bit, and so this is my family. This is myself and my husband. Here's my sweet girl, Peyton. She's my CdLSer. She's 7 years old this summer, and we've got two little boys. Dennis will be 3 on Saturday, and Davis there on the end will be 2 in December. So our household is very full, but lots of fun. And also just a little bit about me and, kind of my background and what I do outside of having a family that I support full time. I also, I'm an advocate just in general. I'm an advocate for my own daughter. And then here in Maryland and Prince George's County, I help other families advocate for their kids. I currently serve as the board chair for Parents Place of Maryland, which is the parent training center that's here in Maryland. And I have a full-time job. I do federal sales for AT&T. So I understand if you're busy, because so am I. So that's just a little about me. Here's a disclaimer for this entire presentation. I'm a parent just like you are. I have experience doing this for myself personally, and so that's why I'm sharing it. I don't promote any of the websites that are listed here. Most of this information, if not all of it, is definitely available on the internet. It's public information. And there'll be more research that you'll have to do individually, and you'll have to take some action in order to make this work. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to have to know is the what and where. So our National Family Conference will take place next summer, June 25th through 28th, 2020 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All of the information that you need and any updates will be found on our conference website. And so please take note of that and head over to that link if you haven't done so already. So the benefits of attending family conference, from my perspective, and I think you need to know this when you think about asking for funding from people. And so we're going to go through some places where you can ask for funding. So keep in mind that attending family conference, there's going to be work to be done. So you're not asking for someone to give you money to go on a vacation and stay in a hotel for a couple of days. There will absolutely be some fun ahead. I've been to a couple of conferences before, and we do have a good time, but there is work that has to be done. You're going to be there collecting lots of information and resources, which could be, definitely bettering for the life of your CdLSer. You'll have an opportunity to meet specialists and doctors that you might not otherwise have access to according to where in the country you live. There are sessions that are packed full of fantastic information, and also tailored to where you might be in your walk of life with your particular with your CdLSer. So there's lots of information, and then you'll be connecting with other families. A lot of things that we learn, I think, in helping our kids in different stages of life doesn't always come from a doctor, right? It comes from another mom or dad who's had this experience already. And so making those connections and growing, your family within the CdLS community is really important. And the foundation provides this conference setting for us to be able to do that. Our kids are super comfortable there, and they're really able to be themselves. And I think it helps the families, be at ease and sit to be able to take the information in. And so it's an absolute fantastic experience. If you haven't been to conference before, I recommend that you, dig in now, start saving, and start asking so that you can get to Tulsa in June. So the first step is you have to know what it costs. And this is an illustrative example of my family and how much it would cost for us to fly to Tulsa for conference. The registration prices that are listed here are for early bird registration, which everyone should take advantage of. So for both my husband and I to attend, it's $370 for early bird registration for each of us. So there's the total there. Peyton is going to be free. All CdLSers are free. And then siblings have a registration cost if they're 3 and older. So Dennis is having a birthday this weekend, so we'd have to pay a registration fee for him. But Davis is only turning 2, and so he could just tag along with us. I've seen siblings at conference before. My kids haven't been yet, but I think it will be a really great experience for them to meet other siblings and to also see other kids with CdLS. There's a special registration fee for a child care provider. My family has an au pair, and so this would be good education for her. And so those are the registration costs. Then there's hotel room. We would likely need 2 rooms. And so the cost per night, $125. It's 3 nights, right? Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. So just doing the math there, and these are just very round numbers. The $125 does not include any taxes and fees, and so be mindful of that. But that's around $750 for the 2 rooms. And then prices for a flight right now, round trip, are about $500. I live in Maryland, and we would fly. I don't think a drive to Oklahoma would work for us, but driving might work for your family according to where you're situated in the United States. And so maybe instead of a flight on that line item, you might have what the cost for gas might be. And so I would need 5 plane tickets. So that's about $2,500. And then consider things like transportation. There is a complimentary shuttle at the airport. They've got parameters around the hours. And so according to when your flight lands and departs, you might be able to take advantage of the shuttle. But you might have to get an Uber or a taxi, or if you decide to go out in the evening or, a day before, a day after, you just need to consider some transportation costs. And then meals and snacks. You're going to want to eat, of course, on the way there, probably. Meals are included in your registration for all day Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday, there's just breakfast. And so according to what time your flight leaves on Sunday or what time you're leaving for a drive, you may want to just include a little money for some snacks. And then if there's any extras that you want to do while you're there with your family, some sightseeing or any childcare excursions that might be offered, just add a little buffer for that if you'd like. So for my family, we're looking at a grand total of about $4,800. And just for example purposes, I said, my family, we could save $500 toward this. And so my ask is around $4,360, right? That's what I'm looking for. Your savings might be more than $500 or it might be less than $500, but you definitely need to go through this exercise to understand what the costs are for your family, and where there could be adjustments made, right? So maybe we get to a place where we've been fundraising or saving and we decide that, I can't afford for my au pair to go because that will bring my cost down a little bit. But you need to have done the exercise to know what your costs are in order to be able to make those adjustments and make your ask. And so I definitely suggest doing this basic Excel document and basic math. So then after you know your cost, we can think about where are we going to get the money, right? And sometimes you have to think outside of the dollar. Everything is not about cash in your hand. If you're going to be asking family and friends for support, thinking outside the dollar means, is there anyone that you know that has a Marriott Rewards account and they could donate a couple of nights of their rewards so that your family can stay in the Marriott property in Tulsa? Is there anyone that has airline reward points that they'd be willing to donate? Gas cards, that's not, cash. People might feel comfortable buying a gas card for you, or gift cards would also be helpful for the snacks or for gas. Credit card reward points are another thing. Maybe you have a credit card, or if someone else has a credit card, they'd be willing to, use those reward points in order to purchase your plane tickets. Those are asks I think that you can make that may not be as impactful or invasive as going to somebody saying, can you give me $4,000 or can you buy me a $500 plane ticket, right? People aren't as, they might easily give you reward points versus cash. So that's something to think about when you're thinking outside of the dollar. And then the other thing, which we'll go into, is, grants and asking different organizations for assistance. So the first slide is going to talk about travel help. And these are just based on, some research that I've done, ways that you might be able to get travel help to actually get to the conference. So Angel Flight is a service that's provided for medical transportation pretty much, right? But and it's free. They take one patient, quote unquote, and one attendant. So the parent or nurse or whatever is needed. And you just have to apply. It's a super easy application, but then there are parameters around how far they can fly, and your child has to be able to get into the airplane, and they're small airplanes, and there's just more research, right? So there's just a site that you can go to. We actually did apply for Angel Flight, but we live about 200 miles too far out. Otherwise, it may have been a consideration for us. So according to where conference is held in 2 years, it might be an option for us. Autism Escapes is another site that offers travel help. I'm pretty sure it's through private flights. I know some of our kids are on the autism spectrum. My girl is not particularly on the autism spectrum, and so I didn't go there for assistance. But if you're on the spectrum, it's a good place to start as well. And then Miracle Flights, very similar to Angel Flight. It's private flights that they donate for medical transportation. The other option is call your insurance company. If you have private insurance, some policies cover medical-related travel and accommodations. And because the conference does have the sessions where we can meet with doctors, it may very well qualify. So that's just as simple as flipping over your insurance card, calling the number on the back, and just having a conversation with the attendant that answers. Oh, that's my airplane. The second idea was, how do I get the school district to financially support attending conference? So there are 3 things that I want to talk about where the school district is concerned. First, knowing the law. Second, requesting your IEP. And then third, not giving up. And I put a picture of Peyton here just so that we know that, you know, our kids are the reason that we're doing this and that we're making this ask, and that it's truly a need. You know, we need to have this education for them, and we need to make the connections with other families to have the best life for our kids. So know the law. Empower yourself and really know the law. Funding through the IEP process is related to related services. So in section 300.34 of the law, IDEA, it talks about related services. And oftentimes we think about related services when we talk about therapies and interpretation services or transportation. But at the end of the law, it talks about parent counseling and training. And so family conference is an opportunity for parent counseling and training. The law further describes parent counseling and training as assisting parents to understand the special needs of their child. And so providing parents with information about child development and helping them to acquire the necessary skills that will allow them to support the implementation of their child's IEP. If you haven't ever been to Wright's Law, there's a website here that I listed for additional insight. Pete Wright has written a few books to help parents with the special education law, and it's an excellent website. There is a lot of information on it. I wouldn't suggest just go perusing, but you definitely need to go, and if you're looking for something specific, you can definitely find it there on Wright's Law. And so that's where I pulled this part of the information from. So knowing the law is important and what your rights are under IEP. So once you have empowered yourself and you know the law, you have your references. The next thing is to request your IEP meeting. It's important to request your IEP meeting in writing, so I would suggest doing it via email and making your request very specific. Also, part of knowing the law is that as a parent, you can request an IEP meeting at any time. It doesn't have to be at annual review only. you can have an IEP meeting as many times as you want to, and they have to accommodate you. So request the meeting, and this meeting will specifically be for requesting funding from the school district. So I put an example of what you might say in your email, that you wanted to discuss funding for you to attend the Family National Conference, that you know the law, you state it there, and there's not a local expert on CdLS in my county, and so I would like assistance in attending this conference. Now, if there's a local expert on CdLS in your county, maybe you can't say that, but I'd be willing to guess that there's not a local expert, and so you probably can say that. And then give them the information about where the conference is. I would say make your request reasonable. Maybe ask for one parent registration, or if you want to shoot for the moon and end up with stars, you could ask for 2 registrations. But I think, just be reasonable. It is a school district. They probably don't have, a ton of money, but whatever you think is reasonable for your school district, I would make that ask. And then once you get your meeting date, you attend the meeting. And document what they've decided. Is it going to be paid directly? So will they pay your registration directly through the website, or are you going to be reimbursed after you pay it yourself? And make sure that you don't give up. If they say no, explain that this is necessary to meet the needs of your child, and that you'd be willing to seek mediation over the issue, which is also your right under the law. It's not a threat, but it's, a next step that you would take in order to make sure that you're advocating best for your child. And from a school district's perspective, mediation is going to be more expensive than just paying your registration. And so hopefully they will just say yes and pay the registration. This was a new law. I knew the law, but sort of using it in this way is new for me. So I haven't tried it myself just yet, but I'm going to. And so when I see you at conference next June, I'll let you know how it worked out. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. There are lots of organizations. We're going to go through a list that's available publicly in just a few minutes. And you want to make sure that you are asking to try and get as much as you can. It may be hard to find one organization that will give you lots of money, but you may find many organizations that can give you little bits of money. And so the little bits will add up to get you everything that you need. And another organization always wants to know that I'm not the only person that you came to. They want to know that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think they'll be more apt to give because they see that as, tenacity and drive, that this is really something that you need. And you're going to be willing to go the mile to get it. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. So here's some other baskets we can talk about. So who to contact. I put these 3 on a separate slide because I think even outside of trying to fundraise for a conference, these organizations just should be part of your toolkit as we raise our special needs babies. So the first is the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. There is a council in every state. So the link that I have listed there, if you go there, you can find the council for your state and the contact information. And then each of the councils has a conference participation fund. And there's different parameters. I only know the parameters for the state of Maryland. So for example, in Maryland, you can apply for the funding. It's up to $1,000. And you have to show proof on how you're going to help the state of Maryland when you come back. So for me, I could say, if you give me this $1,000, once I come back, I can be in contact with the other CdLS families that are in the state of Maryland to be able to share what I learned in case they weren't able to make it to conference. and I can also share with other organizations that support my daughter. So that's what I could do for state of Maryland. The second resource that I have listed is the Center for Parent Information and Resources. Again, every state has a PTI in it. So you go to the link there, find your center in your state, and parent training information centers are there to help with training for parents of kids with special needs and special healthcare needs. The actual PTI may not be able to give you funds directly, but they are definitely in contact with other organizations, locally that could support you. And so they're a good resource. They may have mini grants. The one in Maryland does not, but I was able to make other connections by contacting the PTI. And then the third one I have listed is the National Center on Deaf Blindness. A lot of our kids qualify for deafblind. The combination of a hearing impairment and a vision impairment constitutes deafblindness. And so again, there is a deafblind project in every state. I suggest going to the National Center website here, finding the project in your state, and seeing how they can also support you. So in Maryland, the Deafblind Project does have many grants for families, and conference participation would qualify for one of those mini grants. I actually talked with them this week in preparation for this presentation, and they would be they're considering sending someone to conference, from the Deafblind Project, to go and to learn more about CdLS, to be able to bring it back to the state and help the other kids that are here in the state of Maryland that have CdLS. So those are the top three I definitely think that everyone should contact. The next two slides is a list that's publicly available. I've seen it in a few articles and on a few websites. It's general organizations who support families and, the things that we're looking for, right? So some of these I'd never heard of, but if you go to the website, to look at their charter for what they do, it's really amazing that there are these organizations that are out there. So I would suggest, finding the ones where you feel like maybe you already have a connection, someone that's in the Rotary Club, or, someone that, is part of the Independent Order of Odd Fellows. That is amazing. And so I would use those connections that you have already to say, do you know if your particular club would be willing to support my family to attend this conference, right? And use your connections to get in and make your request. Otherwise, you can just make it as being part of the community that they serve, right? Each of these is a link. I do think the presentation will be available on the website, and so you can click each of these links to get to the national websites. Masons are around typically in every area. Area women's club, like the one I can think of is like National Council of Negro Women, or Delta Sigma Theta, which is a sorority. You support children, that sort of thing. So these two slides have links and suggestions for organizations that you could reach out to. So once you've decided, where you think you might best make your connections, or where you'd like to make your ask, share your truth and make a request. I think it's really important to be honest and upfront about what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you've done so far, and how, you can sort of close the loop on if they're able to share, support you in attending conference, how you would benefit from that. It's really important to use powerful messaging. I wrote an article for the Foundation magazine for the summer issue. And so the letter that I suggested is there's a template. It's on the conference website, but you want to begin with an emotional appeal. If you can include a picture of your CdLS or even your family, I think it definitely will bring a more personal nature to your request. And then state the problem that's being solved. I think the example that I used was, we're trying to get Peyton to walk. And so being able to meet with a physical therapist that, knows CdLS in and out is very beneficial for us. And we might be able to get tools and techniques to bring back to her local physical therapist to support her in enhancing her walking. And so, the emotional appeal, I think I said something like, imagine her, being able to walk down for her kindergarten graduation, which she actually did. She had been practicing her walking in her gait trainer all year long. And when graduation came around, she was able to, in her walker, she like click, 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 click right down the aisle to get her certificate. And it was, super emotional. And so, you share that in your letter to your supporter and, just share what it is that you're working on and what you're trying to do and why attending conference is going to be so powerful for your family. And just be very specific. And then what you're asking for specifically. So if you're asking for one organization to pay for your registration, talk about what the registration costs are and how they can be paid. Or if you're asking for a plane ticket, or if you're asking for gas cards, or whatever your ask is, be very specific about your ask. And then I would suggest, tracking it. So I went to this organization and here's what I asked for. Here's the date of my request. And then if you've heard back from them or not. And then that way you can know, what you've asked for and if you need to follow up to see where your request stands. Or if if they're not able to support you at this time, that you can, continue down your list. So check out the letter template if you need some ideas on your messaging. And then I'd say get creative. I think you should do a combination of all these, right? You should definitely have some savings for yourself or some way that you're going to contribute. Go to your family and friends, make the request to these organizations. Be sure to talk to your PTI locally to see what else they suggest, and then maybe try and do something fun. We have Chick-fil-A here, which my family really loves Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A is super supportive of the community. So you could have a Chick-fil-A night where you invite, people from school, people from church, people from the community and your family to Chick-fil-A, and a portion of the proceeds that is collected that evening can come back to your family, for whatever the specific need is that you have. Some other ideas that I wrote down were, you could do a fun run. It doesn't cost anything to do a fun run. You can do it at a local park. And just get people to come out, register for the fun run, and just have a good time. And that registration money for the fun run could be used to support your trip. You could have a pancake breakfast at your church. If you attend church and they're willing to help you, everyone likes to eat breakfast. And so pancakes are super cheap. So you could, have your church support you in that way. You could do a community garage sale, which if you live in a community that does garage sales anyway, just, get, a few of your neighbors together and to say, hey, let's all do it on this particular Saturday. And then a portion of the proceeds that are raised from that day could go to support your family and your efforts to attend conference. And then if you know anybody that has home-based businesses like Mary Kay or LuLaRoe or Tracy Lynn Jewelry or any of those, home-based businesses, they can host a party for you, and a portion of the proceeds that they make at their party could come back to support your efforts in attending conference. And then, I think everyone's sort of happy in that respect, right? You're giving someone business and you're also working toward your goal. So just get creative about it. If you have a GoFundMe page, definitely put that out there. But yeah, talk to other people about ideas that they might have as well. And then make sure you follow up and say thank you, because this is not the first time or the last time that you will probably need assistance. And so people will remember you when you say thank you. And if there's a specific follow-up that has to happen, for example, with the Disabilities Council, they're going to be looking to see what I did in the state of Maryland, right? And so make sure that if you say that you're going to do something, you follow up on your word and you do it, and then make sure to send thank yous. I think thank you cards are lost art. I would definitely say to use an actual card that you have to put a stamp on and send it in the mail. If you can't afford that, then at least an email with a picture. If you're able to attend conference, take some pictures and then share those pictures back to your donors so that they know you had a good time and that you appreciate it. And then let me know if you have any questions. My email address is here, and you can follow me on Instagram. You can ask questions there. And I wish everyone good luck. I'm going to pass it over to Christy for questions.
Thank you, Tasha. The first question we have is, are parents the only ones who are allowed to request for funding, or can other family members or caregivers request funding as well?
That's a good question. I think it would be according to the organization that you're going to. And so you'd have to really look at the parameters around the request and see what it is for that. So but a grandmother or grandfather could go to whatever organization they belong to and make a request for assistance for their grandchild and their grandchild's family to be able to attend conference. I think other family members could definitely make ask and support your family in attending. And we encourage all of the family to attend, right? So if an aunt or a grandmother or uncle wants to attend conference and they also need support, they can make ask for themselves.
Thank you. The next question is, how long should I wait before following up with a potential funder? And what do I do in the follow-up process?
So it's a timing thing, right? We're pretty far out, so there's plenty of time to make ask early enough so that you can allow yourself, if you haven't heard from them, within 30 days of when we know they give out funding, then I'd follow up by email or by phone call. So it's according to how you submitted your application, how you submitted your request, and if there was a phone number that you can follow up with. But it also depends on the parameters of the actual ask. So some organizations only give out money in January. So if you make your ask right now and January 15th or January 31st, you haven't heard anything, I would call and follow up or send an email and follow up.
Excellent, thank you. The next question we have are about how many places do you suggest we ask to help fund our project?
That's going to be different for every family. So let's take my numbers, for example. I'm looking for $4,000. So if I can get $1,000 from the Disabilities Council Development Disabilities Council, then that makes the $3,000 that I need, you know, I might be able to get it from 5 or 6 organizations, or it may take 10. It's according to what it is you're asking for. So if I'm asking for registration from 2 or 4 places, if I'm asking for gas cards, I mean, I would make as many asks as you can. And then you can, I mean, I wouldn't turn anything back, but I mean, I'd just make as many asks as you can as makes sense for you, right? So, you know, the 2 slides that I had that had all the organizations listed on them, if going to a Rotary Club doesn't make sense for your family, if it's like, if you're not in line with the goals of that organization, then don't make the ask to Rotary, right? But if it makes sense to you to ask, you know, at the Farmers Bureau or the one that was listed on the second slide, then, you know, I would make the ask there. But, you know, I'd make as many asks as you can and just see what comes back first.
Well, the following question we received is what do you do if you receive more money than what you're able to use?
Yeah, I think it's okay to say no, thank you. If you ask for registration from 4 places and that was your specific ask for registration and all 4 came back to say, sure, we'll cover your registration. You could say, oh, well, thank you. I got my registration covered, but are you willing to cover something else? But yeah, if you have everything covered and you still have people coming back to offer, I think it's okay to say no, thank you, but you could give that suggestion to another parent if you've made a connection with other parents like in your area, or if it's a national organization, you could make that connection and say, hey, I had to turn down a registration from this group, and so they may have some availability for you to have that registration if you ask. So.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is actually for Deirdre. The question comes in and is, I was told there are scholarships for first-time conference attendance. Is this true? And if it is, when and where do I apply?
Thanks. Yes, we definitely will have scholarship funding for first-time attending families. Currently, right now, we are working out what the amounts are going to be. So we're going to work really hard to raise funds to be able to give out these scholarships to the families. So as we're able to reach certain amounts that we're goaled for, we will then be able to reach out to the families and let them know that they did receive scholarship. But a lot of those details we're still working through right now, but we are planning to have first-time attending scholarships to give out to families.
Thank you, Deirdre. Another question came in for you, Tasha. Do I ask a donor to send me the funding or the foundation?
The foundation doesn't accept funding for us directly, like for our hotel rooms or flights or that kind of thing. If you're asking for registration, and Deirdre, you can help me with this, but I think if you're asking for an organization to pay your registration, that they can do that online as long as they have the pertinent details. And so they could pay the registration directly to the foundation, but for flights and hotels and the other things that we've listed on Know Your Cost, they'd have to send it directly to you.
And yes, I would agree with that, Tasha. I know that in the past there are certain organizations that will pay for registration, probably some of those organizations that you talked about, and rather than giving the money directly to the families, they will go online or call if that's easier, and they'll make the payment through us on their behalf.
Another question we received is, can we work with other families to request funding, or do you recommend working alone?
I think the more the merrier. If there's, so for example, for like the Spirit Night at Chick-fil-A, if there are 4 families in your area that have CdLS and you want to make it a big event, to absolutely get together and fundraise together and then split that 4 ways. Yeah, I think there's power in numbers. So if you don't have to do it alone, yeah, definitely link up with some other families.
Great. If we don't get all the funding we need and end up not going to conference, how do we return the money?
That's a good question. I think the same way you would say thank you, right? So there has to be some point of contact for that donation or from the sponsor. And so if you need to return the funding, then just make contact with the organization and let them know what happened. And ask them how they'd like to receive it back.
Great, and I can add to that as well on the foundation end, that if we do receive notification and it's required for the money to be returned, we will of course return it. And that was our last question for the question and answer portion. If you have any questions were not addressed, please take a moment after the webinar and submit your questions directly to Tasha at tasha@tashahowland.com. Thank you so much for your time, Tasha. And it's back to you, Deirdre.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you so much, Tasha. You know, I have been to numerous conferences, and some of the information that you shared, you know, was still new to me. So thank you so much for that. And to all of you who called in today, and for all who are potentially going to see this at a later date, thank you so much. I hope you guys got a lot of information, and I hope to see you guys in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Have an awesome day. Thank you.
Thanks.